fan. Because you've been out there kicking it. You really have.
Yeah.
And there's been some people who have inspired you, I'm sure. And I'm also confident you've come across reliable resources. Where have you found I mean, what are your statistics to back up all the wonderful things that you're spouting out?
Well, all of them come from the Department of Agriculture, both the State Departments of Agriculture of Kentucky and Wisconsin, who, by the way, April 5th of 1991 is holding a brand new meeting on this. Okay. I found this in the archives this was the actual minutes of the congressional testimony in 1937 in the senatorial testimony. All plastic was to be made out of pot. All paper was to be made out of marijuana. Bulletin 404, 1960. The whole bulletin is here reproduced. It was actually made on marijuana paper, on hemp paper, hemp pulp paper, the first hemp pulp paper in history. I mean,
so back there they were saying fiber, fuel, paper.
And then in 1937, they wrote an article that was published in 1938 called Popular Mechanics' New Billion-Dollar Crop. And this is exactly the way it appeared in Popular Mechanics in February of 1938. And what happened when this appeared is that it would make a new machine that brought the harvesting down from 300 hours to harvest and break an acre to less than an acre. It would make all the cellophane, it would make all the dynamite, 25,000 new products. First time the word billion had ever been used with an American agriculture crop.
First time?
First time it had ever been used with an American agriculture crop. And actually that everybody thought linen was made out of flax, but it actually says here in Popular Mechanics, echoing Britannica, that almost all linen was actually made from hemp, and that none but an expert could tell the difference. Here it says the paper industry offers even greater possibilities. An industry that amounts to over $1 billion a year. That's about 80 to 100 billion now. Wow. And of that, 80% is imported. But it says right here, but hemp will produce every grade of paper, and government figures estimate 10,000 acres devoted to hemp will produce as much acres as 40,000 acres of average pulpwood. So the whole back of the book, what we took out is hundreds and hundreds of documents.
It's all your documents.
It's so that everything we say in the front half, there's 400 documents that over and over and over show and prove and prove and reprove. They're all government sources. So you don't have to believe me.
No, I was just curious.
You know, it's just it's a matter of record.
Okay, now once you realized all this, and you started putting the parts together, this puzzle, and you got this whole picture, right?
Yeah.
What was your first impression, dude? I mean, what did you feel? Anger, rage, enthusiasm?
I wondered how a people could outlaw a natural thing. And I was one of the people that probably thought it was okay before I started smoking pot, so I wondered why I did it. And I realized I was ignorant, that they didn't teach us this in school. They didn't teach us that the flag, that the Betsy Ross and the flags were all made out of pot. They didn't tell us that the first and second draft of the Declaration of Independence was made out of pot. Maybe it was important, but you know, it's so important that when you start to tell them, they say children don't need to know, you begin to get suspect of the big corporations who run the museums and put out what they want to put out. Or maybe it's just that nobody wants the embarrassment of having admitted they didn't know anything. One of the technicians here, I just told her about hemp for paper, and canvas was a Dutch pronunciation of cannabis and all those. She said, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. And then another one did it, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. So that means ignorance. You can't get mad at ignorance, you can just get mad at the situation that creates ignorance, and in this case, the law, which I decided with my partner, Captain Ed, made me take a pledge to do until I was dead. It was legal in '84, worked for the re-legalization of the #1 plant for paper, fiber, and fuel, and probably the healthiest thing a human being ever does. Along the way, I found out that hemp, when you smoke it, dilates your arteries, lowers your blood temperature, your body temperature, lowers your ocular pressure, dilates your bronchioles better than anything else we have, and finally, it lowers your stress, the #1 killer on earth. So here is the healthiest thing that statistic after statistics indicated you might even live longer if you smoke pot every day than if you do no drugs whatsoever, and you lived 8 to 24 years longer than people that used alcohol and tobacco. What kind of idiot would make somebody else be a lemming for some stupid law that politicians in their ignorance must have made up? Because if they knew it, they'd be criminal and working for pharmaceutical companies. Like George Bush used to do with Lilly, which was owned by Quail.
Yeah. Okay. Nice? Now, I know that you keep using the word hemp, the name of your organization's hemp, stands for Help End Marijuana Prohibition. And hemp seems to be your favorite word, but in all honesty, isn't hemp marijuana? I mean, why aren't you using the word marijuana? Why do you keep using it, hammering it into people's minds as hemp? when it's really marijuana?
Well, along the way, I began to read all this William Randolph Hearst yellow journalism, whether it was from him or from his newspaper editors or some conjunction.
But his yellow journalism, what do you mean?
Yellow journalism, Hearst, if you look up yellow journalism in the dictionary, it'll tell you William Randolph Hearst newspaper. It means when you do sensational, outrageous stories.
And he was doing that with?
Well, he was doing it with marijuana. He's had headlines, marijuana goads boys to bloodlust and murder in 30 days. Well, you know, I've never seen anybody do anything on pot except get the munchies, you know. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, and they would say that marijuana turns man into a gunman, that axe murder smoked marijuana cigarette 4 days before.
Oh, kind of like that reefer madness
yeah,
stuff.
well, yeah, and you know, and they use the word marijuana. When I look back, you know what the word marijuana comes from? The Mexican Sonoran colloquialism, slang, for intoxicant. It didn't even mean the flower of the hemp plant, since our politicians put out this, they call this marijuana, but actually it's the flower of the hemp plant, and the stalk, of course, is the hemp of the hemp plant.
All right.
Or from it comes the hemp of the hemp plant. But the word marijuana became known by the poor people, the Mexicans and blacks who smoked it along the border and in the southwest and around New Orleans. And they called it marijuana or reefer or grifa. And what happened was William Randolph Hearst never used the word hemp. Now, we had hundreds and hundreds of hemp medicines. It had been the number 1 and 2 and 3 medicine in America through most of the 1800s. Until 1863, it was the number 1 medicine we had in the United States for asthma, for muscular spasms, for tetanus. It was the only thing. When somebody got tetanus, we gave them huge, massive doses of hashish, or what they called hemp extractums or cannabis extractums, and we give them so much that they get more in a day or two than you and I have done in our life.
Wow, pay to get sick.
And well, wait a second, no, I don't think so. These guys didn't like it, but for 9 days while they had the tetanus, which is feces in the blood basically, and then before the toxins could pass through the liver, and you got the lockjaw, and the only thing that could keep your muscles soft enough so you didn't die from this, and to allow the toxins to pass, was to take huge, massive doses of hashish.
Wow.
And nobody ever died from it. In fact, I want to repeat that. There's never been a single death from marijuana cancer.
Not one?
Well, none that we know of, except at the hands of police. I mean, there probably is some car accidents, but it's well known that people do seem to drive a lot safer. They've done study after study after study, from car and driver to the University of Washington, and that they found out that people actually drive a little safer as far as getting home than even people that are straight. They just miss their freeway exits more often.